What is up, everybody? It's your boy Travis from PPG here, and today I am bringing you my top 4 2023 GenCon RLE Life Recovery Girl deck list. I've been working on this deck for a little while. I got to the final version at, I want to really say the night before the event. And let's get into it. Before I actually start, make sure you guys go check out PPG store, all that cool stuff. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And yeah, so first of all, what does Recovery Girl do? Recovery Girl is a 5-hander with 30 health, good life, and water. First form, gain 2 health response. After you take damage, build 1 foundation from your discard pile, and then enhance destroy 2 foundations as cost. Your attack gains throw. Alright, so what is the deck looking to do? So this deck looks to press a lot of buttons and assemble a lot of neat combos via multiple foundations, interactions between your foundations and your attacks. Like, for example, Energy Suction is really good with this character because you give your attacks throw, and then whenever your attacks deal damage, which most of the time they will because they are throws, you gain 1 health, which she's essentially, if you have ever played like any MOBA or anything like that, she's a drain tank. She's going to take a lot of damage and then just gain it all back over time. And so basically the entire point of the deck is to give yourself enough time to gain that health back and gain an advantage over your opponent in that manner. So first card, we have Body Rejuvenation. Honestly, this should be a 4 of. This card put in so much work this entire weekend. It was a discard out, so we could discard things to make our Passing the Torches active to draw us 2 cards, which helped us filter through our deck more. Speaking of filtering through our deck, I guess I should probably, before I go too deep into this, explain kind of the logic behind how many cards this deck is actually playing, because I know a lot of you are seeing this and going, wow, why is this deck 97 cards or 93? It's actually supposed to be 97. This deck list, which was the one that ended up getting submitted, was unfortunately missing 4 copies of Keeping Aries Safe, which ended up getting me a game loss in Top Cuts. Not that it mattered, because we still won that one anyways. But it's 97 because if you guys have ever played, for example, Commander in Magic the Gathering, there is a kind of golden ratio rule when it comes to that game. It's 30 to 35 lands and then 60 to 65 non-lands, or I guess it's a little bit more than that. I didn't do the numbers correctly, but basically it gives you the best chances of seeing a specific amount of lands before your top, I want to say like 12 cards, and a specific amount of like non-land cards. So for this example, our attacks are our land cards and our non-attack cards are our non-land cards, if that makes sense. So basically we wanted to draw enough attacks, because the only way you really lose with this deck is if you get hit so many times that you have a stage but you don't really have a way to do it, and you just use it and have to keep building. So like, for example, your opponent chips you for like 15 health or something, and then you can't hit them back at all. And that was a big issue with the previous iterations of this list that I play, or that I have played. The Funny Punch version, if you ever drew just Funny Punch by itself, it felt awful. So just playing other better attacks that all do something by themselves and contribute to the game plan was amazing. But yeah, now that you know why the deck is so big. Also, we're a control deck. We're trying to play a longer game. This ensures that we're never realistically going to mill out, no matter how like long the game goes, which was actually semi-relevant, kind of. There were 2 people that were playing Mill Mimic and did a actually decent job. I believe Kevin Broberg and Mark Tyner both top 32'd, I want to say, or top 64'd, somewhere in there. So like, it was realistic to have to play against a mill deck. Anyways, back to it. Body Rejuvenation. This card is crazy in this character. Discard a card for -2 speed, or remove it after it enters your discard pile during the enhanced step, gain 2 health. And for example, it was ruled that if you blow up a face down foundation, its on enters discard pile effects would still trigger, which is pretty good. Just like building this off of a Precious Lesson or something like that, for example, or even just blowing it up with self-sacrifice. Very, very good, because it was essentially -3 damage. And then it also triggers or makes your Passing the Torches better, I should say. because it turns them into a draw 2 instead of a draw 1, since you can just discard a card from your hand for -2 speed down to 0 and then draw your 2. For practical studies, this card is really good because we are a deck that loves to poke, so we're really not playing that many attacks past our first one, and maybe saying that, oh, our blood transfer is more likely to hit even when we don't give it throw because it's already a high base speed, and then we also give it free speed from practical studies. Very, very good. Same thing with like rewind smash, back alley, like all of these attacks that we don't like usually want to blow up for to make them throws early. Just making them a little bit faster so our opponent is less inclined to block them was very good. And then the deadlock is absolutely insane. The deadlock on this card solves most of the issues with playing this deck and playing a longer game. It allows you to shut off any throw hate that your opponent may have in their stage. So like wall cling, for example, is the best one. And it's just very good. On to the next card, Ryukyu Agency Trainees. Going back, this should be a 3 of, and the fourth copy of Agency Trainees should be a body rejuvenation. But this card is also very good. It's good with repeated 100% smash because we can ready it after we've used it once to say that we get extra builds during our turn. And there are a lot of high quality foundations that we can build after our opponent blocks by committing this card. So like cargo loading, Excited for Blood, Childhood Friends, Passing the Torch, like life foundation quality is so insane. So having access to a card that just says when your opponent blocks, you punish them by building a good foundation from your hand, and then you can keep going. It's also very good against breaker blocks, just being able to play a cheap foundation, eat the breaker, and then keep going with your turn. In addition to the fact that it just has a good deadlock response, which says after your attack is blocked, your rival commits 2 foundations. And it's also buildable off of Command Pigeon Flock. All upsides. Energy Suction. So Energy Suction, like I was saying, is very good in this deck because, first of all, it has a very good interaction with Rejuvenating Smash, where if you play your Energy Suction, you then get to play your Rejuvenating Smash on a 5 and get full value out of it by drawing 2 cards and gaining 2 life. And then, since most of your attacks are going to be throws, when you touch them, you also gain a health. So pretty good all around. Wild Wild Pussycats is our next card. It is very, very good in this deck. Form essentially mill 3, add a card. It's add a foundation, but add a foundation is basically add any card in this deck, except for obviously these guys. But I never had the like, oh, I can't add off of this come up throughout the weekend, if I'm recalling correctly. Like, this character really wants her discard pile to be filled because the more cards you have in your discard pile, the more options you have for her response. So yeah, great card. I never had the after you block an attack with this card, that attack loses echo ability come up. But I guess there are some decks playing echo attacks, like Tetra Terror is a good card, so not bad. For All Smiles, this is a new addition to the deck since the last iteration. There are a lot of like spammable things that are very threatening to this character, like for example, all of life's random damage pump in self-sack, tight-lipped, etc., etc. Their bench presses, their brute strengths, all that kind of stuff. This is very, very good against that because it just says, hey, stop that. So like for example, I played against 3 different Death Eraser heads, and this card absolutely dumpsters that deck. Oh my lord, like, they play brute strength 3 times, either of the enhances. You just pop it, and then their deck just like stops doing damage to you because all their moves are for 4. It's like crazy. Really, really love this card. And then also it says response flip, after your rival gains health due to their non-character ability, they lose 2 health. Man. This ability is like fine. It rarely ever came up. It did come up in the Recovery Girl mirror match that I had to play in top 16, and it was very good there because it let me trigger and Excited for Blood to gain health back on a turn that I probably would have died if I didn't have it. And like, having extra ways to trigger your Excited for Bloods on your opponent's turn is just very good. Bench Press. Bench Press is goated. This card does so much in this deck. Not only is it a damage pump when we lose 2 for Excited for Blood, it also just says that we gain 2 health flip to give this attack -2 damage, basically. But it also triggers carbo loading, so like that's fantastic. 4 carbo loading, the best card in the deck, hands down. This card says commit itself for 3 damage. Well, it's commit any foundation, and then you get X damage where X is the difficulty of the committed foundation. And then response once per turn after you gain health, ready this foundation, playable while committed. This card's crazy. This deck is all about gaining health. This gives infinite damage to our throws. I would not play this deck without 4 of this card in it, for sure. 3 new training method. So I keep going back and forth on this card. I think there is a realistic world where you do end up just cutting this card instead and favoring more like spam foundations, because realistically it doesn't matter how big your first turn build is. It matters what the quality of your first turn build is. And this doesn't necessarily contribute to that unless you are using it to build a carbo loading or an excited for blood or anything like that. But being able to pick up your important foundations, because this is a big deck, when you check them, is very good, I will say that. Excited for blood, second best card in the deck. This card lets you stabilize from so many unwinnable games because your opponent puts you to like 2, you have this massive staging area, you built triple excited for blood, you go form, gain 2 health on your character, play a attack, give it throw, gain your entire, like half your health bar back, and it's like they almost didn't do anything on their last turn. Amazing card. Childhood Friends. This card has an insane interaction with Rejuvenating Smash in this character. It basically says that you get to have a Rejuvenating Smash almost every single turn because you play it during your turn and then you respond with Childhood Friends, since Rejuvenating Smash is an attack that shares 2 or more symbols with your character, to pick it back up at the end of your turn, and then you get to do it again. So like, you just gain so much health off of this little combo, and it's also buildable off of Pigeon Flock and your character, and we are playing enough powerful attacks that we do get value off of the Respond Mill 2 to gain a health and your rival loses a health, and it's just deck speed. Like this deck really needs to get things in the discard pile quickly, so having this card to help mill us is very good. For Passing the Torch, because it's passing the torch, this card says tap it, draw a card, or draw 2 if you have no cards in your hand, which is pretty easy to do in this deck. Yeah, like, you just run 4. For Self-Sack, third best card in the deck, arguably. Just being able to reset your face downs, essentially, with your character, put them into your discard pile for -1 damage, build them when you take damage, not much else to say. Also a good low block. Precious Lesson. This essentially mitigates the bleeding that our character does foundation-wise by building us foundations from the top of our deck face down when we destroy them. Release. It's the best defensive tool in the game, and I don't think it's close. This card's crazy. No reason not to play it, especially at 0 difficulty. 3 Tight-Lipped. It's tight-lipped. It's a good spam with a good block that flips for bonus damage, which helps us hit throw break points. And it's buildable off of Back Alley. Not much else to say about that. Like I said, there was supposed to be 4 copies of Keeping Airy Safe in this deck. So like, just toss 4 copies on top of this. But this is technically the deck that I top cut with. So that's what I'm giving you. But if you want to play the full list, you add 4 Keeping Airy Safe on top of this and just play it like that. Because if you play this list, it will mess up your numbers. The deck will be less consistent. I can tell you based on my 3rd match in Top Cuts, that was absolutely abysmal. Don't run into RNG like that, and you'll be good. This deck's crazy. Under the attack lineup, for Rejuvenating Smash, this card does everything. Draws you 2, gains you 2 health. You don't actually use the enhance on this card ever, but if you really wanted to, you could run the Momo 1-diff foundation that says discard a card and draw a card if you wanted to trigger this. It is also possible to trigger it with body rejuvenation if you don't care about the speed of it, which usually you don't anyways because it's made a throw by your character. So it's like, oh yeah, I'll get a free momentum by discarding this card. Sounds good. For Command Pigeon Flock, it builds like 3 different great foundations in your deck. No reason not to play it. Repeated 100% smash, repeated $100 bills. This card's broken. Easily the best attack in the game, bar none. This card says, ready one foundation that has not been readied this combat phase for each punch in your card pool, and it could have had just that line of text and been one of the best attacks in the game. But it also says, if its damage is 10 or more, checks can't be modified, which means you can't be breakered, your opponent can't release, all that kind of stuff. It also applies to you, which doesn't matter because this deck doesn't play anything that modifies your own checks that actually matters. Yeah. Broken card, EX3, powerful 3, so triggers childhood friends. Like, I don't know. Card's crazy. Blood transfer. If this card is added to your momentum, add it face up, and then I'm sure by now most of you know the interaction between blood transfer and this character. So you get a blood transfer into your momentum, you take all the damage your opponent sends at you, you build in excited for blood every time, and then on their last move, when they think you're dead, you flip blood transfer, gain 1 health, your opponent loses 1 health, and then you flip all your excited for bloods to gain like 16 and destroy their math entirely. They fail their kill turn, and then you probably kill them on the backswing because they gave you 4 foundations for free. It's very good. Forceful blow. This was our main kill condition, but it was also an amazing poke because it picked up some of the best spam foundations in our deck. Picking up energy suction, practical studies, self-sack, precious lesson, release, tight-lipped. Like, all of these foundations are crazy. You want to pick them up, and then in the late game, you just kill them. So yeah, fantastic. Also punch, relevant for repeated. Back alley haymaker. I don't think I need to explain this one, but for those that don't know, it's an insane poke with stun 2 that also replaces itself or makes itself affordable, and it's a punch. Rewind smash. This card has a lot of cool stuff that you can do with it in this character. So if you make it a throw and then they block it, you can basically stack the top card of your discard pile. Since both cards entered simultaneously, you can choose which one is on top to pick up with rewind smash if they do end up blocking. So just yet again, reusing our resources so we don't actually lose them, and just extra card advantage and all this kind of stuff. I never once used the discarded card enhance. Doesn't really come up. For reverse throw, after my last list, I realized how important it was for this deck to be playing throws that are not actually throws. Or rather, throws that are throws, I should say. So you don't have to use your character that much in the early game to give things throw and get damage and progress the game state. And this is obviously the best of the throws that are throws, because it's a punch. And it also has relevant card text. This card says your opponent blocks it or you draw a card for free. Like, why would I not play this card? Very, very good. 1 Young Heroes. This card was crazy every time I saw it. A response, discard 1 card. Before your rival's attack receives a damage bonus from a non-character effect, reduce that bonus to 0. So, for example, if your opponent's playing like Death Eraserhead and they have a Grenadier Bracers out, or Grenadier, whatever you want to call it, you can discard a card to set their damage bonus from the tap ability to 0, assuming they don't erase your Young Heroes, which they probably will. But against other decks that don't have answers to it, like decks that are playing powerful attacks, so like Jiro with her Home Run Comet, powerful for 1 billion, all that kind of stuff, discard to make that damage bonus 0. If someone Cannon Blasts you, you can discard to make the damage bonus from that 0. Just a whole lot of applications. And I think this card is crazy. So Aerie, especially in this deck, is absurd. She says response, remove, discard 1 momentum before the damage step of your rival's attack. Reduce its damage to your current health -1, minimum 1. So if you're at 1 and you use this, you will still die. And then at the start of your end phase, you ready 1 non-unique asset or foundation that was not ready during this turn's combat phase. Wow. This card does like crazy things in this character. Being able to ready passing the torch after you poked your opponent and drew a card with it to essentially make yourself a 6-hander, crazy. Honestly, if I could find space, I would bump this up to a 2-of so I saw it more. And then for recovery time is the last card in the main deck. This card was crazy it just gives you so much longevity in the game. You're allowed to take like mediocre pokes that you don't really want to block and then just, oh, hey, by the way, you didn't actually do damage to me. Right? Like you did 1 damage. Oh no, I'm just gonna heal 2 back with my character, even if it was for 6. Yeah, I'll take 6 and then gain 4 and then gain 2 on my next turn if that was your only poke. Like, really crazy. And then it also has a response that says after this card leaves your hand due to your rival's effect, you draw 2 cards, which is fine. It never actually came up, but I'm sure it possibly could. Onto the sideboard, 3 evaded copy. I was worried about Staff Strike Jiro, which is a pretty bad matchup for this deck, and it's also good against Mirio and also the cringe All Might 4 deck. So yeah, this is just a good card in the sideboard. It's not something that we obviously want to build from our discard pile, but that's fine. 3 instant Shining Flash. So one of the ways that you can lose playing this deck is if you let your opponent chip you too much and then they send a giant move with EX, like for example Recipro Burst, or a giant like move that one-shots you basically. And this card stops them from getting the momentum to do that, and also has a very neat interaction with Rejuvenating Smash, because you can flip a foundation to say the next card you attempt to play this turn gets -1 difficulty, and then play a Rejuvenating Smash on a 5 as your second card and draw the 2. So it's basically like your 6th, 7th, or your 5th, 6th, and 7th copies of Energy Suction post board. 2 encouraging training partners. This is basically the same reasoning as Evade Copy, but it's in our stage, so it's a lot easier to answer rather than just like a hand trap that does it for us. And then 2 Walkling. This was for the mirror and to kind of fix our blocks if we ever felt like, oh, I need more high blocks. I need like, maybe my block zones aren't particularly the best for this matchup. This card was for that. All in all, I had a blast. This deck's crazy. This character is insane. If you never want to lose to Mirio or to an aggro character again, you play this character and you grind this character and you will never ever lose to an aggro character again, barring like you extreme low roll or they extreme high roll, because like obviously if an aggro deck high rolls, you can still lose, but this character will win 90% of the time against those decks. Anyways, thanks everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure, like I said, you guys like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out PPG. If you guys want to, check out my channel, Mr. Matsu on YouTube. And this has been Travis, signing out. Have a wonderful day.